Okay, hey everybody. Going to be sharing this over with the page real quick, and then we're going to be doing He-Man. Um, it's going to be pretty cool. Going to share it over with the page. It's going to be a massive one. I'm not sure if I'm going to get this session done today or not. I may have to split it into two pieces. We're going to see, but I'm definitely going to give it a shot. Um, this one's going to be a little bit like the Mumra piece. It's a massive piece. I'm not sure exactly how it's going to go yet. But first thing, with him going off the way I had him go, just outside of the scale of what you would normally see with him standing in front of the GraySkull Castle, I put his feet off just a little bit here at the bottom so that we can have a good shot and get him just a little bit larger than what we needed there. Because if not, it wouldn't exactly match up, okay? It would be too small. He would be like microscopic, and that wouldn't be fun at all. And we don't want to do that. So, with that said, moving everything around here, I'm going to get started. I'm just starting in on this chest piece so that I get it centered right out of the gate. Make some adjustments here as we go so everybody can see everything and whatnot. There we go. Hope that's better. Get my hand out of the way here. Because this one is a massive, massive detail piece. And I don't normally like to draw this small because of the fact that it just loses the dynamic, but, the dynamic edge, as it were. But in this particular case, he's going to be small no matter what. So we're just going to get in there and knock him out. Make sure everything's in the right spot. I'm going to do Skeletor tomorrow and have him in front of Snake Mountain so that you guys will have those, and they'll kind of mirror each other a little bit. But for the most part, we're going to get this He-Man underway. And this is a big piece for me for a Sunday. I normally don't do pieces this massive on the weekend, but this is a fun one because I've been coloring pages all day long, and now I'm wanting to get a little bit of more creative type of angle going to where I'm doing something a little bit different. Because coloring is a little monotonous to me because of the fact that you don't have to think about it creatively as much for me, because it's old school, old habit, because that's what I used to do is hand color. And, I've always done that all along. And then I got into digital coloring, and it's still just as fluent now as it was then. Which if you guys want to see something later, that's awesome. I'll help you out with that, and I'll show. But I want to see about getting some of this going. And because this is so small, this is one of those pieces that I haven't laid out as fluidly as I normally would. I mean, this is pretty abstract as far as I'm going right now. Because normally I have all the little details in there, all the little nooks and crannies and all that going on. And right now I've got just barely enough detail going on to really pack this in, because I wanted to be a little more raw with this one for you guys. And that's what we're getting. Somebody asked me if he was going to be, more of a doodle. And I was like, nope. Nope, not at all. It will come together. We'll get it going. It'll come together. So, it's going to be pretty cool. Drawing the hip there. get a little more of the obliques in, a little more of that rib set and that lat back there. And here's the other side of the chest. And here he'll start to form, because this is where it's going to start getting a little more reminiscent of what people know as the He-Man type of character. Because there we go. There's the chest. There's the shoulder. There's the bicep. Right there. I don't want it to hang on that card. Now there's the bicep, and there's the little divot right underneath the arm there, which always comes out funky to me anyway. But there's the rear delt and the tricep coming back up here. And there's that little wing right there in the middle that always comes down in between the bicep and the tricep. And I can't remember the name of the muscle, and I don't try to. That's not what I do. You know, I don't pride myself on knowing all the little monstrous muscles in there and all that good stuff. And that's where the delt splits right there. And blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, yeah, the lats in the back. And da-da-da-da. I don't do all that. I mean, that's cool to know. And you have to know the basic shapes of them to make it all work. As an artist, you have to know where the muscles are, but you don't have to know all the names. You know, you don't have to be that hardcore about it. Unless that's something you just want to do. And if you do that, that's awesome, and more power to you. I wish I had a better discipline on that than I do. Because as we speak right now, I don't. But I don't fake it until you make it either, and just draw stuff in there, because that's crazy. You know, don't just put muscles where they don't go, because that gets real weird too. But I'm going to draw in this huge friggin' He-Man hand here. And normally I would do the cupcake method here, but I'm not going to do it this particular time, because I want to make sure that I don't miss any of the digits. That's the reason I'm blocking it out. That way we can have all that going there the proper way. Because I've done that before and had to go back into comics and stuff that I worked on, because it'll be like, hey man, that hand looks weird, and all of a sudden it's like 1, 2, 3. Where's the fourth finger? Where is it? We missed it. We left it on the truck. Go get it. Kind of thing. And you don't want to do that. So, and I know this is kind of obscure here with the sword going this direction and the handle going that way. It's because I was going to come back in and reline that. And that's the gift of a trusty old ruler right here. And yes, I am going to do that right now. That's just the kind of artist I am. He cheated. No, I did not. I used the tools of my trade to improvise. So, that always cracks me up when people do that, because they freak out. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm managing the base of the sword here. I'm trying to lay out everything here so that we have all the good stuff going in with the curls right here. I don't want them to look too knob-esque and look strange. There's the side of the other one. Because when he holds the sword up, he holds it at an angle. It's not spot on, but it's not straight up either, you know, where you get a full frontal perspective of it. But this way we get that kind of 3/4 turn type of deal going on. And I'm also not going to do the He-Man hair. I did lay it out right there, but I'm not going to do the He-Man bob. I'm just not going to do it. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to go in and put in the head. And I'm going to go ahead and draw in the head here. And then I'll put in the face, and we'll draw in some modern looking hair, because I just can't do the He-Man bob. I just can't do it. I was gonna respect that, but I just can't do it, man. because there's a lot of stuff going on there. There we go. We put in the head. We'll leave that alone for just a minute, and we'll come back to that. I tried. I just can't draw in the He-Man Bob. I just can't do it. He's got that mushroom cut thing going on, you know, and it's just weird. I just, no. Oh, man. All right. Putting in the cupcake here. Drawing in the old digits right there. You know, people come at me seriously, come at me about that because of the cupcake method for the hands. And they gripe and complain and all that. And I'm just like, you know what? That's okay. I've seen some serious people get bent about that, and I just don't know why. I've seen people get angry and want to cry about it and whatnot, you know, and they get all bent about it. What we're going to do here with this He-Man is I'm going to come down this way. I'll put in the bangs right here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come off like this and kind of make it like classic Thor hair. Because I'm just not going to do that that He-Man Bob mushroom cut thing. I just can't do it. I don't normally say I can't, but I'm not. Instead, we're going to give him some Fabio comb back here kind of thing. Just because of the fact that I want to do it different. And now I'll go in and draw on this tiny little face here. Because it's like super small. This is going to be kind of scribbly and kind of quick. But I want to make sure. And with this being a sketch card, I can get away with a little more of him looking rough and then refine it. Because this angle is kind of harsh anyway. But I will go in and refine that a little more as we go along. Cut in some more of that jaw there. Not the best looking face with it being that tiny, but. And yes, this being He-Man, I am going to put in the nurples. Because he is bare chested. So. Oh, that's another thing. Because of the bangs being so long and so funky, which they're not going to show up until I actually ink this because they're so tiny. That's going to have a little bit of an impact on the face too, because I didn't sketch in the face like I normally would. So now all the layout and stuff's not there to kind of pop it out. But getting down here on this knee. Kirby squiggle. And you got to do the classic furry boots, you know, with He-Man. Got to draw in like the furry mountain boot type things, the barbarian type boots. And again, Kirby squiggles for the knee. Because this is so small and sketchy. Give him a little bit of a thigh muscle there. A A little bit there too. And see, this one is so small it'll get really, really refined whenever I ink it, rather than what we're seeing in the penciling. And right now I'm just laying in the rough stuff right now, so that we can see where He-Man goes, good stuff, and then I'll refine this as we go along. So don't think the finished product, because it's not. I know some people will be freaking out. Dude, this is like your worst card ever. It's okay. It's okay. It's not the end. It's not the end. All right. We're into GraySkull a little bit now. Start refining this thing out. This is where it gets cool. Whenever you have He-Man come in like this, and then you get to do GraySkull. GraySkull is actually where the power is in this image. Okay, it's not He-Man being so tiny on the front that matters. It's the GraySkull castle, and because of animation and them being so fast-paced in motion, they had to put everything in really restrictive and really tight in the guidelines. And it was all about getting the image in a three-dimensional plane that was a fake three-dimensional plane, the illusion of a three-dimensional plane, without the ridges and all that good stuff that stone actually has, and the depth that they could now, with the CGI animation and whatever they all do now. Because the way I did it more block form, like the castle was cut. And now we'll go in and define all that good stuff. I did it like the skull was cut into it, rather than the stone just formed that way. I mean, yeah, it's a cooler organic look whenever you do it that way. But the thing is it's not as visually pleasing to me whenever the castle is so carved raw. It just doesn't do as much as this does whenever you come out and start to show it off and start to get all into those details like it was carved artistically. It makes a totally different ball game. I'm adjusting to make sure I've still got you guys in camera. Yeah, see, that's coming off pretty good. Still looks a little too rigid right there. And I'll carve that down quite a bit. See, we want it to look carved, but we don't want it to look so refined that it's not, that it doesn't have a weathered look to it, like it's just like it was carved last week. That doesn't work. But if I was to design this, I don't know if anybody'd like it or not, because this would be this would be pretty much how I would do it. Now, rough sculpting is different in that regard, because rather than organic wear and tear on it, I don't mind the look of the rough stuff, but because I want it to look cool. But like I said, the big catch-22 for me was I always thought GraySkull looked like it was like it was lacking something. I don't know if it was just the carved feel of it being a castle, you know, but I don't think it was supposed to be the natural effect of the side of the, you know, just in the side of the mountain either, because it was up there by itself. It had to be man-made, or, well, human or humanoid made by some other living being rather than, because who knows, in the human, you know, the human universe is just crazy. But the humans in that universe are so off kilter with characters like Beastman and things like that. You don't know what you're going to get. But the point is, it had to be made by some kind of being. And I always took that into heavy consideration. Always thought that should have been considered part of it, because, you know, I see people drawing it in interpretations of fantasy art all the time, and they'll just chop it up, or it'll either be like stonemason work to that extreme, or it'll be to where it's non-existent and it's just, you know, the side of a mountain where a secret waterfall came through and cut the rock or something, and that's what's left. And it's just, that's an extreme to both ends, and I'm not knocking that at all. It's just, for me, it's a little bit different. I prefer to go a little more organic, with the rock being shaped, but yet manipulated by man and the purpose of the structure. So there's a high-end contrast there, and you have to use it very carefully. And if you use it properly, it'll bring out a really cool looking finished product. Like I said, see, that's man-shaped there, but yet it's using the contours of natural stone to give those lines and give that ridge. And it just gives it a more of a richer, thicker type of dynamic to it. But we'll see how it comes out, because, you know, the funny thing is, like I told everybody the other day, I've never drawn this monument before, this structure before, ever. And it clearly shows. I'm not one to really pick at my work too much, but this one is a dead giveaway. So I'm okay with that. I accept it. But that's part of why I do this, is so I can expand my study. Now, if you don't know this, GraySkull has a crown on it. And I'm looking, I did the same perspective that they always do in the cartoon intro, where it's down on one side a little bit further than it's supposed to be, because it's on a tilt. And also that it goes from a one-point perspective down this direction, and kind of a pyramid effect, to where it closes up at the top and then comes down and out. And that, if you look at it, that's why the perspective's that way. It's because or that's why the direction's that way, because the perspective comes down like a pyramid. And this thing is very tactical in the way they laid it out. I will give them credit for that. They laid it out just phenomenal. Even though they didn't go quite as three-dimensional as I would have in the rich cuts like this, but they still handled the look of it overall. I like giving these masonry cuts because it just gives it a different effect and feel altogether. These sharp angles and stuff. And they don't have to match up and be even, because you gotta remember, this wasn't, this structure isn't designed to be exact, and it's also supposed to have wear and tear on it, like I said before. You know, it's supposed to look like it's worn down a little bit from what it was originally posted as. So that's a cool thing about that. What I'm doing right now is just giving it a little more of an edge here and there, popping all that up. I'm starting to think this really may be like Mumra, it may be a 2-part piece. I'm hoping not, but maybe. I'm gonna thicken that up a little. Just depends on how far we get. And I got asked the other day, what happened to my finger right here? I know you guys see it once in a while and you ask me about it. The reason it's a little off right there, just a personal note, because people asked me about it, I was going to answer it today. I told one of the guys that asked me I would answer it today. When I was a kid, I was, I guess, 3 or 4. I got it slammed in a car door, and it got dismembered, and they sewed it back on. So that's the reason for the scar there. Part of it got ripped off. But gross, I know, but nonetheless, you guys asked, therefore now you know. So if you get grossed out, stop asking. Let me switch over to the 9 here. Oh, geez. Hard line this just a bit. Now I know I'm doing this fine detail with a 9, and it's a little weird. Most people wouldn't do that, but I'm giving it a heavy hard line because of the fact that I want to keep the shape of that sword relatively the same throughout. So, and I'm starting to pick up a little graphite here, so I'm gonna put my dab pad down. Which is funny because as I'm coloring stuff or as I'm drawing, you'll see these little things I do, like this. This is just to keep the graphite off the back of my hand so I don't smudge it into the card where it won't erase. And I put color test, you know, I'll rub the lid on them for like my pencils and things so that it gets a smooth edge so I can use it for the coloring. You guys have seen me do that before. If you're a regular watcher, you know. So just kind of darkening up these edges here. And I really dig this one because now I get to go right off the edge here and put in that little divot that we all have underneath the edges of our nose. If you feel on either side of your nose and you feel that bone right there, you'll feel that little ridge raise up out of your face, and then you'll feel that little divot right there underneath, part of where your smile lines and whatnot come from. And that's what that divot's from. But anyway, I'm gonna go over here and do this eye first before I get back messing with those teeth. I want to draw in the teeth so bad because the teeth are the cool part. And once the teeth are detailed, that's where all the fun stuff comes in, because then it gets to get into the stonework and all that. And that's where the really big details are. But right up front, though, we're just laying it out and laying out the structure. And like I said, normally I lay these things out with pretty good refinement. But this time I left it open because I wanted to do it a little more raw, and because he was so small, I didn't want to over detail and overpower him to where I couldn't see where everything was. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go back over here and finish the top. And I wanted to do that with this dark 9. And this is all the top we will see on Castle GraySkull, is that edge of that crown. Just like in the animated series, which is where most of the reference came from, except for the fact that, like I said, I look at the reference, make notes that I want to change, and then I get into the artwork and don't look at it again for the first time I draw something. And then after that, it's all me. So I'm going to start on this side with this tooth right here. Okay. Make sure I have some lead in there. There we go. Now see, when you're drawing teeth like this on stonework, I wouldn't recommend doing this anatomically on people, but if you want to do it like this for stonework and things like that, for structure or carving, I like to give a little round tip to the tooth like that and then come back up. And the reason I did that heart type split right there, it's because teeth are triangular. They're not flat. And if you do that, it automatically pops that up without having to mess with it too much. And then you can go in and put in like this flat edge right here, and it just, boom, there's the tooth. So it gives it that illusion of having an edge to it or a second angle to it without messing with it too much, so you don't have to overwork it. And see, I'll do the same thing again, heavy-handed, because I've been coloring all day. Sorry about that. But I'll do it again right here. See that? You don't have to mess with it too much. Just that little ridge, boom, right there. That's all it takes. And go right down to that hairline. Shape that out a little bit so that I can get those teeth in there. Like I said, this is really rough right now. Now going this direction, I'll do it the other way. My nephew, when he was, I guess about 4, maybe 5, he used to ask me why I used to draw butts on teeth when I drew them. Out of the mouths of babes. He asked me about a month ago, do you still draw butts on your teeth? You haven't drawn anything like that in a while, and I just wanted to know. He's a teenager now, by the way. So he tends to think that's funny, which in all reality it is. But see, it's starting to come together. Hey, Chris, let me answer your question, man. Hey, Jim, you made it. Cool deal, man. Let's see. Would you say it's more challenging drawing Castle GraySkull with He-Man? Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Yeah, drawing Castle GraySkull with the He-Man in place, it was tough because I had to draw it in first, and then I had to lay him in after, and it's to put him in proportion of where he is in the cartoon version. Whenever that famous shot, which this is based off of, he's like this tall, and to put him on this card would be just like microscopic, and it's not even worth it. But so I pulled him out just a little bit and put him in front of GraySkull instead of, so we can get that raised look. I mean, I would have to do this on an 11x17 to make it pull off what we needed. So just to answer your question, yes, it is seriously harder to draw He-Man in with GraySkull instead of just drawing GraySkull flat out. And the drawbridge being down, by the way, is why the lower teeth will lay over these two giant canine teeth in here as well. Also, from the angle we're at, they overlap just a little on this side because we're looking at GraySkull from this angle. Because it comes down from this pyramid type perspective, and then you have that twist where it's just a little bit, and that's so you focus on the sword. But that's why they did that, and that's why I did that as well. But yes, to answer the question, it is a little more intense to draw with He-Man involved than it is without, because it takes a lot more layout and a lot more thinking in that regard. So, yep, took a little more planning. But I just go into my drafting background and, you know, layer this stuff up, so we don't really have that problem as much as most people would think. And there's always that one or two teeth. I mean, I know there's only like 4 or 5 in each side. There's normally, I think, 4. But I drew 5 because I wanted to make it a little more obscure. And be a little different. Just to be different. Just to be different. You got to do everything weird just to make a point. But sorry, it's the weekend. But no, I did that for separating mine from theirs. Of course, theirs is a lot better than mine in my opinion, but it is what it is nonetheless. So, and cut down right there. I put this weird little tooth out here to look off to the side for a reason, because it gave me a break in the difference. And like I said, one of them has 4 on one side and I think 3 on the other. And instead, I just kind of staggered it out a little bit to break the balance and break the dynamic. Let's see what we can do with this ridge here, because there is a dip under your nose in your skull. There is a dip right here, and humans have this just like animals do, and they don't normally show up. You know, if you feel under your top gum, you'll feel that split there. But I'm going to put this as a ridge like this, just to shake things up just a little bit and to be a little different. This is a down curve. I'll put a little detail on that ridge there to make it look a little more raw. Because like I said, this is just for fun, and it's not an exact replica. I don't want to do it that way. It's not an exact replica at all. So don't come at me with, you know, hey man, your Castle GraySkull, that's off. Yeah. Please don't do that. We're here for fun, dang it. But I'm gonna show you guys a few more of these cuts here. This is one I like to do right here. In skulls, I love to do this little sinus divot. And what I do is I do this, okay? I come in, draw the pocket, so because it curves out. Think of it like a triangular knob on the edge of the base right there, where we would normally have that ridge that would come down, and then the lower jaw would be back here, you know. Well, this is obscure, and on certain simians, that's apes, there are divots right here in the sinus pocket, and it comes off just a little bit better when you do that, because it gives it more of a grimacing edge, especially right over that front tooth. Not necessarily the primary canine, but that eye tooth, as it would be for us, which is actually an incisor, not to that canine, but it gives it a bolted edge. And by bolted, I mean it gives it a raised edge to where it looks like it's just right there in your face. It's raised. And so many people fail to add that kind of detail into stuff. I do it because of the fact that I know it's there, and it just is a really cool feature for me. And when I was studying tattooing when I was younger, I tell you, that was always a prominent feature everybody wanted, was that creepy ridge right there, where the teeth set. And see, on this side right here, the way the stone's cut, I will give, because this is raised, and this is going to be like level with this piece, these cheekbones, and this piece right here are going to be level, where that's an undercut. So what I'm doing is I don't want to match that up because where it looks like it's cut in here. What I'll do is I'll do it this way. Like the stone looks like it's weathered in one particular spot, and give that same effect as just giving a creepy, unique edge to it. And now I'm going to put in the bottom of this brow. And there's not really heavy brow cuts on this, so I'm not going to go too far into that. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give it a little bit of a detail and kind of make it look like it was ridged out just a little. Like maybe there were cuts there, and it makes it look a little more grimacing. Now I got to draw this underside here so we can start detailing this thing out, because like I said, this is getting a little long, and I want to make sure that I have time to get everything in. So we would probably do part 2 of this tomorrow. Depending on how long this runs over. Putting in those little edges for highlights. Making sure they're all going the same way here. And you'll notice that I'm not doing that in front of every one of the teeth, every tooth, every one of the teeth, because of the fact that I don't want to do it. I got sidetracked with what I was going to say now, and I've completely lost thought. Anyway, live, people. Anyway, now that I can talk again, I didn't do that in front of every one of the teeth because of the fact that I wanted to get that whole thing going where it's got that edge, but I want that tooth to look raised, like it's right out, like almost bucked, like it's out in front and raised a little different into the stone, and maybe where they started and then it realized it wouldn't fit or whatever. I don't want it to look completely carved, like the teeth are carved and then wedged in. I want them to look like they're actually part of the stone, and that's the reason why I did that. You'll see that in a lot of ancient carvings. You'll see that kind of thing with the amateur carvings. You won't see it with the professional masons as much, because like the Egyptian stuff is more precise because they used mason work, and a lot of old sculptors, we're talking primitive, more raw type sculptures in that regard. So if you go looking at like Egyptian stuff or Mayan or Incan stuff, you're going to be like, hey man, that's not the way they do it. They did it right. Well, just saying. And I'm going to put like pit scars and things like that in here because, like I said, this is stone, and not necessarily from weathering, but more from like war, as it were, because that's what it would take to damage something like this. And a lot of people say don't scar it up, leave it perfect. But the thing is, though, it's not perfect. Castle GraySkull has seen war after war after war and siege after siege. And, to make it look that way And to be the shrine and temple that it's supposed to be, you have to really kind of wear that down. But yeah, those teeth are going to be a little offset, and I want them that way. I've been off in my own little world all day today, and I haven't spoken to anyone. Be keeping to myself, and then that teeth. There you go. That teeth. That was funny. And if you can't laugh at yourself, why, you know, what's the point? I don't take myself that seriously. I really don't. A couple of dots right there for stoneware. It's just one of those things. You got to go in and draw all these funky little details and, you know, make it look good. Don't forget your stonework. Don't forget your thumbnail. Of course, on that small, though, it won't really show up. It'd be more of a thumb nub, but that's okay. Putting on these highlights here and putting in these little details. Because bone's very porous, so you got to put in, you know, all that kind of stuff. But in the same regard, though, stone is as well, so it kind of plays to itself, you know, because a lot of people will be like, well, you don't want to put in all those details because it's stone, it's not real bone. But the thing is, though, you know, it's just as porous. In reality, it's just as porous. And see, like this right here, I'm going to put in this little underline just to break off the blacks, just a little. And that allows me to get a little more ridge in there and a little more depth, like it's inset, you know, kind of like it's squished down to his face. Hug style, but just trying to make it look asymmetrical. Everything kind of balancing out a little bit. But you may notice, you know, this is just a little off center. It's a little flatter on that side. And this eye is just a little bit more squished than that one is. And this nostril down here is a little bit wider than that one. You know, that it's a triangle, but it's off shape. Because if you look at it like this, you know, it's got a longer point on this end. And I'll use the ruler here for another example so we can see, because, you know, the triangle is not square. It's off. And the reason I do that is because I want it to look more natural, because in the human face, one side's lower than the other. And, you know, I mean, it's 100th or 1,000th of a millimeter. I mean, it's just nothing, you know, but it's enough to where you can tell. It's enough to where you can tell if you look. So it's little details like that that I really like to pay attention to. And like this, the underside of these teeth right here, this canine right here specifically, canines have a cutting ridge in them on the underside. Okay, they have a triangular shape to them anyway, where the top is triangular, to where it has that cone on it, and then it's got this layered ridge right here, and then it's got another ridge underneath where it's a cutting edge. So it's got more to it. I mean, if you feel your canine underneath, you'll feel a little ridge up underneath there, and that's the cutting edge. It's not necessarily sharp, like, you know, I don't want you to be like, hey man, you said my teeth had a cutting edge and it doesn't. Well, it's not sharp per se, but it's a different dynamic in the tooth to grab into the meat differently, and it's to make a holding grip. And you know, as humans have evolved, those teeth have changed, and you can see it definitely in primates and things like that. You know, their canines have ridges like this, and I mean, I'll go even a little more extreme. They have ridges like that, you know, like a cat or a simian, an ape, you know, as it were. But I like to add in those little details too, because they freak people out and kind of shakes things up a little bit. And these are stone too, and they're not, and coming from the same piece of stone that this is, they're going to have a little wear and tear to them. A lot of people don't like to put wear and tear in teeth because when they draw them, even in sculptures, because it makes them think about the mortality of their own teeth, and they got to start getting, you know, running the tongue over them and getting a little weird with it and whatnot. And it's just, yeah, you know, I don't want nasty teeth, man. And I totally agree, but but it's part of it, you know. It's the texture of the material, so take that into consideration. And I don't normally put in all these little cross hatches and all that mess, but with this stone texturing and this being so small, I really want to make this look good, because it's not going to have quite the pop in the detail of what I normally do, because you can't see it, you know, it's not right up in your face. Um, and yes, I made one side bigger than the other too, because like I said, I wanted that tooth offset. I wanted it to have an edge to it, and I don't want it to be perfect. So like this right here, make that one side a little heavier. And then draw it like it's seated. So it looks like it's inside the basin of the drawbridge, because these are separate. The drawbridge is man-made, so it can be constructed and look like they're seated in pockets, as it were. But they're still stone from the same wall, so out of the same cave and same whatnot. So clean that up a little bit. And as you guys know, normally this would be a lot cleaner with these lines, but that's okay, because this is a massive, massive piece. It's not that big. It's just that it's got so much detail. Really? A lot. A lot. And there'll be some guys out there that are like, you know, like a Wills Potasio or a Mark Silvestri kind of influence. I know what you guys will be saying. You know, you'd be like, there's not that much detail out there, man. Don't worry about it. I draw more detail than that in my sleep. More power to you, because I don't do that. Kind of get in those ridge lines for the the depth of the cave here. Now this one's going to be a little different, because this is going to be raw right here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in like this, and I'm just going to leave that open. Then I'm going to come off right here, and I'm going to do a kind of a back and forth motion with this one, where they're going to have a dark spot and a kind of a light scratchy curl. And the reason I'm doing that is because of the fact that it's going down into the cave. And I want to show where those ridges are, kind of where it was carved out in layers and waves, and a lot more that'll come off as I detail that once they're set. But for the moment, I want to go back on this tooth here for a second and thicken that one side, shadow side up, because I know it's going to black out, and then the cave's not going to show up. So and I always found it funny too. It was always funny to me because of the fact that whenever you let the drawbridge down, the drawbridge was right here, which would go in between the teeth. Okay, it would go in between these two when it raised up. But when it was laid out, it always looked out like it was in front, where it never would fit. I don't ever get how that happened, but that's the way it was laid out. You know, they weren't exact when they laid that out, and I'm just sticking to the tradition of it. But yeah, that irked me when I laid it out because of the fact that this won't fit. it just won't. Because it had a secondary catacomb that it laid into when it opened, and I did a lot of research on the cartoon itself to see when they opened it. It had a second jaw bay that it opened into and laid into on the ground, which is where this ribbon comes from, which was the actual opening. But I mean, it just comes out of nowhere. So, but that's the magic of television, I suppose. So it doesn't make any sense. It just comes out of nowhere. But, you know, to ask the ultimate question, you know, who are we to judge? Because, you know, how awkward is it that a guy can hold off a magic sword in a loincloth and go from pink and purple tights to He-Man? So, fantasy doesn't have to be explained. You leave my fantasy alone. We don't need no stinking badges. So, it is what it is, folks. All right. I'm going to go right here beside this because I don't want that to look like it comes out of that tooth. This is not looking bad. I'm not totally crushed. I'm not totally crushed, really. I appreciate it, Chris. Thanks, man. I try not to put too much detail into it. My thing is there's a fine line between detail and then overworking. There's a fine line there. This dude is so tiny. Oh my gosh. If I had any wits about me, I would not have done it that way. But I got asked yesterday if I would do the dinosaurs. as part of the next set. I don't think so, but you never know. I probably not. I'm going to try and get more comic stuff in rather than get more animation. So we'll see. And I'm still going to put in that that new Megatron, or not, the Optimus Prime Megatron piece that I was going to do. I'm still going to try and do it, as well as get in that King Kong Godzilla piece that you guys voted on and so adamantly wanted that Kong piece. So I was like, okay, cool, I got to do that. So I love the way that's looking now because it's starting to pop up. Mark Silvestri would be proud. But and before I ink this, yes, I'm going to take my trusty Dusty, because I haven't wiped it off today, buffer eraser, and go through and put in some lines for you guys so that we can do the power streaks on this when I color it. So yeah, that'll be there as well. I will be leaving those wide open and then coloring that later on. So we will have that as well. I got asked about that this morning when I posted. And it's like, you gonna put that in there? Please, please put in the power lines. Of course, if he said it at this size, though, I mean, all seriousness aside, if he said it this size, it would be funny. Because he'd sound like a little kid. Sound like a lemming or something. It's hard to be tough at this scale. It's hard, dang it, it's hard. It's a hard knock life, people. I mean, you know, Master of the Universe and all that. The Ultimate Guardian. Got to run around in his furry drawers all the time. It's tough. But the ladies like it. So there you go. All right. Now, I'm not going to cut inside. I thought I was going to cut in some of these pillars first, but I'm not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here because we're looking at an hour already. I'm sorry, I'm stopping to read the question real quick from Chris. I was going to ask if there's ever a line between detail and too much detail. Oh, yeah. A line between detail and too much detail? Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. When it gets so hairy that you can't tell the line work and tell stuff apart, that's when it's too hairy, plain and simple. That is when you've gone over the top. I mean, you can definitely see this castle, and you can see He-Man standing there. If I detailed this to where it was so overworked with lines and stuff to where it all ran together, and you couldn't tell what was going on, that's definitely overkill. I see that in comics all the time. The easiest way to see that is in examples of black and white work. You'll see people just line it to death. Now, what they think they're going to come out with is what Jim Lee and Scott Williams do, which is all cross-hatched and, you know, just beautiful line work. Even if you're not a fan of Jim Lee, you know, in that style, what I'm talking about is specifically the line work and the detail they put into it, the level of detail. When it comes out looking to where every detail is properly and it's balanced and you can still see a clear image because of the negative space being there, awesome. But if you have a problem where you're going in and you can't tell who's what and what's what, it's mud. And when it's mud, you can't do it. That's the difference between it being overworked. If it gets muddy to where you can't tell, then you've got a problem. I see that kind of crap all the time. People who come in and go, well, you know, I got to put in this baseline for this turret so I can figure out where the measurements are on the bottom. Okay. Anyway, what I was going to say was, if you look at someone doing black and white work, you'll see that really easy. Pay attention to things like The Walking Dead, and then go check out independent guys that just kill it. Look at Mark Silvestri's work, black and white. Beautiful line work. The guy does awesome stuff. It looks incredible as it comes off the page. But then you've got guys that come in, and I'm not going to name anybody, but I know a couple of specific artists that I don't follow because of that. They get it to where it's so mudded up you can't tell what's going on. You know, whenever Sam Keith used to do the Max, people used to complain about his original style because he used to do a lot of graffiti work, and it was really, really edged, and it would be god awful in comparison. And they were like, your other work sucks. And it's like, well, you know, the thing is, though, he has a very graffiti style. I can't remember. A guy that used to go by the call sign of Tex, Texvaria or something like that. His name was Mark something. And he used to do a lot of Marvel stuff, especially a lot of Wolverine. And his stuff was really scratchy like that. And, you know, a lot of people used to hate his style, but it wasn't the style that ruined it. It wasn't his inking style that ruined it. It was the coloring that ruined it. It should have stayed black and white. So, you know, there's a real fine line between what works and what doesn't. So pay close attention to that in that regard. I hope that answers the question. But, yeah, in that regard, you have to be very careful because you'll kill it. You'll kill it. You know, you can go way overboard. That's why I try to keep my style open and more color dependent, because of the fact that I want it to stay clean. I want to do it that way on purpose so that you guys don't get, you know, pointing out to me that, you know, it's just all of a sudden, your stuff sucks, man. We can't see anything. So that's a big part of it. And another thing is you have to be careful not to draw too small, like I've fallen victim to in my own lack of following my rule here by drawing this too small. Frank Miller, he used to draw Daredevil and Spider-Man really, really tiny, and he used to just tick people off 10 ways from Sunday. It's like, man, your stuff is not, stop that. Because he'd draw these panels. And I mean, he drew on the same size page, you know, the 11 by 17 page, just like everybody else. But he would draw these microscopic panels. And it's just like, stop it. But, you know, then he got to drawing bigger, you know, bigger and better stuff. And he started drawing again later on, bigger. And it got a little more edgy, like his Sin City stuff. But then he went more graffiti style, like I was talking about before. So you got that other end of the spectrum. So, you know, you got to maintain what's going on and not choke it out either direction, because it'll be a disappointment to your fans as well as to you, because it'll do more damage to your artistic style when you start covering stuff up and using like Wally Wood's famous rule, you know, if in doubt, black it out. Well, that doesn't mean black it out just because you can. That means black it out because you need to, not because you can. So, because Wally Wood used to black out hands and feet and stuff, especially when he was drawing like Tarzan or Conan. He would, you know, black all that stuff out. And he was forever shadowing a foot, you know, cutting off. And I won't do it here, but he would cut off like mid-calf and just draw a black line across and draw another big black line this way and black out this angle, and then just do this cross-hatching thing down across the bottom, and it would be a shape of a foot, but he wouldn't have drawn the detail. That used to irk me to no end. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I'm glad I hope you get something out of it. But Chris, by the way, for everybody that can't see because of the YouTube channel later, Chris just responded to the sketching stuff, saying, you know, that basically he likes to watch it and learn. And I hope you get something out of it, you know, as well as getting to see the style and how it's done. Because so many people don't, but it's coming along. It's starting to pick up a little bit. I told you guys it wouldn't be all this sketchy stuff forever. Now, my thing is with these turrets, I'm going to go with a classic stone turret here, which I shouldn't, but I'm going to anyway, because of the fact that I just like the way it looks. There'll be people that'll be complaining about this later. That's not the way GraySkull looks. Well, that's okay. They're not exact either, but that's all right. Because this is all for fun. And I did that to my buddy Norm Rapman one day. You know, if you don't know who he is, he's a professional inker at DC. He worked for Image before that. And, you know, he's been around for ages. Not ages because he's not ancient, but he's been around for a while. You know, he made his big mark in the 90s. And he made this sketch that he posted a while back. And it's a running joke now with us, but he made this sketch of the Flash. And I commented on it in the forum, and I thought somebody was jacking around playing him, but it was actually from his account. And I was like, whoops. Because he drew the Flash running with the elbow, you know, the old traditional, the parallel for the human body, the old traditional marker is that when you're moving in motion to maintain balance and momentum, if your left leg comes up, if your left knee comes up, your right arm is forward, and vice versa as you run or walk or balance or however it is. Whatever the motion is, it's the opposing force of the body to parallel that. Well, he drew it on both sides. He put them on, you know, this, he put, let's say, the right leg up and the right arm forward. And I was like, he's not going to go anywhere. He's going to fall over. And I pointed it out, and he goes, who cares? And, you know, he and his wife made this big thing, you know, oh, my God, honey, how are you going to make a living, you know, that kind of deal. And I didn't realize it was really Norm. I thought it was somebody making fun of him, and I was trying to defend him. And it was one of those obscure things. It was just, I was like, whoops. So, you know, it was just the most awkward drawing that I'd seen from him. And, you know, knowing his skill, I was just like, don't say you're Norm, you know, drawing the Flash like that. And it really was. And he just didn't realize he did it. So it just looked good that way to him. So that's what he did. And I just find it entertaining when stuff like that happens, because it's just, you know, like me earlier talking about the teeth thing. I don't care, but it is what it is. It's said, done, and I'll have a good laugh about it for a while to come. But still. Let's see. All right. I'm going to wait on this one because this has got a stonework look to it, and I don't want to go into that right now because then I'll have to finish it. And I'm going to call it quits right here for where we are. So I'm going to say this is part 1, and we're going to go finish this up tomorrow in part 2. I hope you guys dig it. Sorry I'm not going to finish it today, but I've got an hour and 13 minutes into this thing already, and I really don't want to tie up everybody for that long. We'll finish this up tomorrow, and then I'll do the Skeletor. And what I'll do for Skeletor is I'll do something different with Snake Mountain. I'll put him up closer because he really doesn't have a power pose like this, so we don't have to worry about that. So I'll be able to do something a little more dynamic with him closer. But thank you guys for hanging out with me, especially on a Sunday when we should all be with the family and stuff. I appreciate that to no end. Sneak peek for the comic book. I told you guys I'd give you a look. Here's another page I colored just a few minutes before coming on. I finished this one up, tweaked it a little bit. This is a page from Lone Rider. It has not been blended yet. That's the reason it looks rough with the pencils, but it'll be nice and smooth like this one right here when we're finished up with it. That book is coming, so is the sketchbook and everything, just to answer that question. But until tomorrow, catch you later. See you for part 2. Until then, be nice to somebody. Smile. Say hi. Give them a hug. Preferably someone you know. But Until then, take care.